What is going on, guys? Ultimate Deadpool here, back with an update video. We are going to do a little bit of new things, as you can tell by at least one of these things in front of me right now. As well as a slight teasing for something in the future. So don't worry, this is a character that's already been existing forever, so it's not a brand new character. So for those of you who are getting tired of turtle content stuff, that stuff will be lowered down to after I finish the Rex Venge series. There's going to be one other little mini series that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And after that, turtle stuff is shut down for the little while, unless you guys are 100% on board with turtle content for now. It's been non-stop for almost a year, if not over a year. So if we need to, we can cut down. If I need to, I can cut down on turtle content and focus more on stuff that you guys actually want to see. Unless people are okay with the turtle content for now, let me know in the comments below. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Okay, so as I said in a previous post, I'm going to redo Shredder's Rex Venge Part 3. I hated the way that freaking video turned out. Not just in terms of views, just in terms of how the story went. It didn't make sense, really, and it just kind of felt rushed. It was also filmed very early during the day, which is something I don't normally do. So I'm going to redo it. I never redo a part on a video like this, so I'm hoping it doesn't completely ruin this little mini series. So hopefully it does something good. But since nobody really reads my posts, I just thought I'd go ahead and bring it up now that Shredder's Rex Venge Part 3 is going to get a sort of remake in a weird way. And the old video will be deleted within about 24 hours. So if you have not watched Part 3 by now, don't worry, it's not going to affect anything. I'm going to pick it up right where the last part left off, and tell a much better story and do a much better animation style and fight scenes than what was shown in the actual Part 3. It's still going to be Raphael versus Slash, but there are going to be a couple other things that are going to be added to it to make it better. Obviously, one of those has to be a version of Rex, because, you know, it's called the Rex Venge for a reason. So, anyway, moving on. Okay, so like I said at the beginning of this video, there is one more series with Turtles that I would like to try to do before I kind of call it quits on Ninja Turtle content for a while. And that is a Killshot centered series. I love the Killshot character that me and my brother have come up with, and he's been so underutilized the last few months. And odd enough, he's actually a year old, not too long ago. But I've always wanted to do something big with him, kind of like what I did with Metalhead when I first introduced him on the old channel. It was like a big dramatic, thing. It was a big deal, and people ended up loving the Metalhead character. And I want to do the same thing to Killshot, because to me, Killshot is just as an interesting character as Metalhead, because he's essentially the same guy, just a little bit different. So, well, not the exact same guy, but he's got a similar skill set. He's got just as much of a badass in his own way, and he is for me a very fun character to voice. I love trying to create his Australian accent, even though it is a bitch to keep up and maintain. But I always love giving Killshot that Australian accent, and I'm not changing that for anything. He started off as an Australian character. He's going to stay an Australian character, even though the accent is not perfect 100% of the time, if ever. So, but I was watching some old videos trying to figure out what I can do to make this channel better, and I ended up getting to the very first episode or video where I ever introduced Killshot, and his back had a whole bunch of weapons. I'm like, well, that makes sense. He's a I can't explain it now because I'm going to do his origin story at some point in the future. But, you know, I want to do something with Killshot because he's just, to me, he's just such a fun character to work with. And it would be so cool to kind of give him the spotlight for a little bit before all the Turtle content stuff dies down. Obviously, they can still make cameo appearances and whatnot and certain things, but it's not going to be like heavily based, you know, Ninja Turtle character content like I have been doing lately with like Shredder's Rex Venge, you know, and a couple of other things where it's just Turtle characters as the main characters. They can still show up as cameo appearances. But I want to do something with Killshot, and I want to do something big. But unless I do his origin story, which would take a while, I really don't want to go ahead and jump right into something else that's centered around Killshot unless it's something that's basically going to put him on the map. Because he's been on the channel for over a year, and he's very rarely been shown on screen and really has hardly had anything to do. There's been plenty of deleted scenes and deleted video ideas featuring him, but never something really big. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys want Killshot to be a big character similar to Metalhead, or even rival Metalhead, let me know what you guys think of this and in the comments below. And let's go ahead and start jumping on to the newer things. Okay, ignore the hideous monstrosity that is in front of you right now. This is an idea I've been tossing around in my head forever. So I will not say who this character is right now. But I will say this is a very popular character on the channel. You know what, screw it, I'm just going to say it. This is Metalhead. This is what will be a light up version of Metalhead, because the original character, when I created him, he had robotic eyes that light up red. And this figure is big enough to do something like that. And, well, yes, this one works just fine. It doesn't have the LED eyes to make it look really good, especially on camera. That would look really cool on camera. So I'm doing this as like a clean Metalhead, so it's like this is Metalhead before he got beat to crap. This is Metalhead before he had the scars and the bullet holes and stuff in his armor. This is all before that. So this is like fresh out of the, you know, cryo freezing chamber that Shredder kept him in for 3 years. This is fresh out of that. You know, no damages to his skin, no damages to his metallic parts on his body, just simply raw reborn TX-15. And that's why he has twisty ties in his eyeballs right now in the back of his head, because those are where the wires for the LED lights are going to be on his head. And then his shell is being held together with a rubber band because I had to break the shell off and hollow it out to fit a 9-volt battery in the back of his shell. And as you can tell right now, it does work relatively well. Yes, the shell looks a little off-putting, but it'll be moving so you won't ever notice it. Hopefully. So, this is an idea I've been bouncing around in my head for months on how exactly do I do something like this, and then it finally hit me. Use micro LEDs and tear apart extra turtle that you have lying around, and bada bing, bada boom, here we are. And really all that's left now is to get the LED parts for it, and then once it's done, I'll do a video on it showcasing the new and improved Metalhead. Now this guy, he's still going to show up in plenty of videos. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. But this one is basically going to be referred to as Metalhead Prime. Basically, this is Metalhead in his prime. You know, he's just now starting out as his, you know, robotic form or whatever, his cyborg part. He's just now starting it with this particular look. So, and for those of you who are wondering, no, these two are not going to fight anytime soon. But this is basically what he's supposed to be in a weird way. Because he's supposed to have, you know, red LED eyes and whatnot. He's supposed to be this, you know, perfect badass. And that's exactly what he is. But I always wanted to do a clean Metalhead. Like, not where there weren't any bullet holes. There weren't slash marks. There weren't cuts on his eyes. They're wearing blood scars and stuff on the shell. None of that stuff. So this is going to be basically a clean, untampered with metalhead with red glowing eyes and a really weird misshapen shell. But anyway, that's pretty much it on the old stuff. Let's go ahead and talk about the new thing. I can't show one of them on screen because it's too big to fit on screen, but we'll go ahead and discuss that here in a little bit. Okay, so I was at my local Walmart a couple days ago, just getting basic groceries, oddly enough. And every time I go to Walmart or Target or whatever, I always go down, the collectibles aisles, the toy aisles, and whatever, just to see what they have, just to see what kind of fun stuff, I could look at. And that always gets me in trouble. But I'm conflicted on this particular figure because if you guys saw my last video where I talked about props and stuff like this for future videos, some of you guys might know this. I was never really a fan of Marvel Legend action figures because they always just seem so not cheap, but like piss poor quality. Like they weren't cheap, but they felt cheaply made. It's weird to explain it, but I always hated the Marvel Legend action figures ever since 2007 when I first got some of the first Iron Man figures that came out when that first movie came out. To me, the figures themselves, they look good, but the quality of them was just not there. Their legs were always bending in the wrong place. Their elbows and stuff were always warped. And it's just like, the quality was not there. And then last week, or sometime last week, or whatever, the last time I did something like this, where I reviewed the Iron Man Mark II and the Spider-Man Homecoming / Civil War suit versions of the characters, I was giving them big praise because they were, for me, they were an improvement on what I thought Marvel Legends characters were. Now, this is Marvel Legends War Machine from the Infinity Saga of Civil War. And, when I reviewed Iron Man Mark II, that to me was a step up from what I had previously thought of Marvel Legend action figures, especially when it came down to the Iron Man characters, because that's what I first had as Marvel Legends stuff. I had a lot of Iron Man toys from when that first movie came out. But then looking at this new stuff, the molds and stuff are great. The paint job looks freaking awesome. But it's like the quality on this particular one is just not there. The machine gun on his shoulder is a joke. Eventually, I am going to have to glue this on there, like I did with the Punisher version of this, which we'll get to in a minute. But it's just, like, some of the accessories that he comes with, they hold and they stick in just fine and whatnot. But it's like when I said with the Iron Man Mark II, when you move his arms up, these shoulder pieces should move with it because that's part of the arm. But for this one, they raise up. That's it. They don't move anywhere. It just stays. It's all molded into the body. The arms, when you move the arms up, you can only move them up so high, and then the shoulder pieces get in the way. And it's like, well, shit, if you move them up any higher, they're going to break the shoulder pieces off. So, I mean, in terms of detail and in terms of, the visual quality, 10 out of 10. But in terms of, the actual, I guess, playable quality, this one still sucks. Because the gun is a total joke. And half of the other pieces, like his staff here, they barely fit in his hand. And like I said, with the shoulder pieces and some of the parts of the legs, they don't work that well. And that's one of the things I always hated about Marvel Legend action figures, is because they visually look nice. It's just the actual quality, and I get it. They're children's toys. They're going to get beat to crap and half the stuff. But it's like Marvel Legends still builds, or Marvel still makes that stuff for collectors as well. That's why they give them this nice detail. They make them look nice and pretty. So that way if a collector or whatever says, oh, hey, look, this is cool. I want to add this to my collection at home. There you go. So now that I've This is basically the same thing as the Punisher Wolverine, or Punisher War Machine that I got a couple years ago. It's the exact same mold. It's the exact same. And see, there goes the gun. So it's literally the exact same thing. The only difference is the molded plastic that they used for this particular version of War Machine, and obviously the paint scheme, which is meant to more resemble the Punisher, because there's something in the comics where the Punisher stole the War Machine armor, painted it to look more like his own colors, and then used the War Machine armor for his own stuff, which is fine. But at the same time, like, this proves my point. Like, visually, it doesn't look bad, but around the helmet, the paint is super choppy and super gross. And it's like, I get it, it was haphazardly painted on Frank's part, but it's like, you look at the skull on the armor, and that looks flawless. But then, like, you look at the arc reactor on this, which is supposed to be what this is modeled after, and there's no blue iris or anything around to symbolize the arc reactor. On this, there's none of that. On this, it's a step up from it. So it's like, visually they do fix their mistakes, but in terms of certain molds and in terms of certain, like, playable features, like, you know, with the gun here, this one had to be super glued in because it kept falling out and was not supposed to be falling out. I'm eventually going to have to do the same thing to this one, and it's like, you know, to a collector, that's one thing. You know, the collectors always nitpick every little thing they can because that's their job. They go to a store, they find something that a child would use or play with, and they're like, how can I deconstruct this to where I can be as big of an asshole as possible? I'm not trying to do that. I always try to look forward, you know, try to look for the best qualities in certain things like this. And it's very hard with these Marvel Legend characters because, like, visually, these look great. You know, even this one. Yeah, it's older, it's dustier and whatnot. But if I were to clean this up and whatnot with a sink and a paper towel, it would look just fine. The only thing I have that's nitpicky on detail-wise on this is the helmet. The helmet looks off-putting and stupid because the paint just does not look good. Like, I don't know if you can tell. But, okay, well, it's not going to focus on it, but the paint on it looks off-putting and it just doesn't look right. On here, that looks freaking damn near perfect. So, I mean, it's one of those little nitpicky things that me as a collector finds and stuff like that, like, you know, the arc reactor and whatever should be highlighted. And I think I actually said something about that when I first reviewed this character, however many years ago or however long ago it was. And it's like, I get it. There's going to be so many people blowing me up in the comments or whatever, saying, well, it's actually meant for children, so children are not going to care. I get that. And, you know, you could always play into, like, the battle damage part of stuff like that if you're a kid or whatever. I can imagine, you know, the War Machine armor falling apart or whatever. I get that. But at the same time, it's like Marvel, like Iron Man Mark II, to me is a perfect example of how much of a step up Marvel Legends stuff got. Because the detail work was flawless. The paint job that they used for it was minimum, yes, because it was molded in that nice silver. But even then, there were like a few little maybe minor nitpicks that kept that character from being a top 10 or 10 out of 10. But it's like, this is just this is about as bad a quality as this in terms of, like, posability and whatnot, because the joints are all so stiff. The arms and stuff aren't working right. The legs and stuff don't work right. And it's like, Iron Man Mark II, man, was like a humongous step up from this. And this was made this same time it was for the Mark II, because it's a freaking Infinity Saga release. And it's just weird. It's a personal thing on my part. I've just never been a big fan of the Marvel Legend action figures. I've always been a big fan of their props. Their props are freaking awesome. I've got Spider-Man's helmet and Deadpool's head and like one or two other ones somewhere else. But this Marvel Legends to me just they never worked. They never worked the way they were supposed to in terms of their action figures, in terms of their props and actual wearable stuff. That stuff works great all the time, but this stuff, the action figures and stuff that they use, I'm still saying that they're not bad. It's just they're not 100% there. Like I said, when I reviewed Iron Man Mark II, it was the same Infinity Saga thing that this stuff came from, which is exactly what this War Machine is supposed to be from. It's supposed to be the Infinity Saga, Captain America Civil War, Iron Man, War Machine, whatever you want to call it, suit. And it's the exact same mold as this, which came out several years prior to that. And I get it, it's cheaper to just remold the shit or keep the same molding and just change the color scheme up. But at the same time, it's like they could have done so much better with what they did. And I think, honestly, the Iron Man Mark II suit figure proves that. So I'm still going to review Marvel Legend characters and stuff like that on the channel. Just be warning, if you guys are hardcore fans of the Marvel Legend action figures, I am sorry. But there's just something about them that I never really got a hold with and never seemed to care about. Just because they always just seemed visually good, but playable-wise, just so cheap. And I hate to say that just because they are a good brand and they are good figures. It's just, there's just something about them, and mostly in their arms and the way that they mold the stuff that just does not make sense. Like, literally, that's as high, if you go any higher, this whole shoulder piece is going to break off. So if you wanted it to be like this, except all the way up, you're going to risk breaking that shoulder piece off, and that's not, for if you're a kid, that's not something you want to do. And that's why, like, in 2007, 2008, when the first Iron Man movie came off, we just freaking kept removing these things, kept falling off, to where the point where we just said screw it and we threw them away because they just kept falling off because they just had like these two little pins that are supposed to hold on to it, and a kid flying it around like Iron Man, and their fingers hitting it or whatever, and they fall off. They're like, oh well, we're just gonna throw them away. That's exactly what we ended up doing because the quality was not there. Now granted, this is a drastic step in quality from when those first few Iron Man figures were released back in 2008, but still, like, there's just something about Marvel Legend action figures I have never just been able to clasp with. So there is one more segment to this video. I'm going to go ahead and say it now, and then I'll cut to showing you guys exactly how this thing works. So for years, I'm not kidding, for years, I have had people begging me to do something with Godzilla, because Godzilla is a popular character, and I personally like King Kong better. That's just me. But I always thought Godzilla was a badass in his own way. So I've never been able to find something that was scaled enough to where I could use a Lego minifigure or whatever and have Godzilla fit that scale. Until when I was at Walmart the other day, I was looking around the toy aisle just like I always do, and I saw this War Machine, and then just on the other side, or on the same aisle, all the way down where they had the Godzilla X Kong stuff, they had the remote control Godzilla that walks around in realistic motions. His tail swerves and whatnot, and he has the simulated atomic breath thing that he has with just the humidifier thing in his mouth and whatnot. So I'll cut to that here in a little bit of it actually working. But it is not perfectly scaled, considering a Lego minifigure. Realistically, Godzilla's foot would have to be like, this freaking tall for a minifigure to make sense next to it. But I mean, for actual scaling wise, it's not that bad. It'll hold up the illusion that, holy crap, Godzilla is huge. So, and I can actually make it walk and shoot fire, so if I wanted to. So, yeah, that's really the first ever Godzilla thing I've ever owned. I've never really been, like I said, I've never been a big Godzilla fan. I've always liked King Kong more, just because to me he just seems more like an interesting character, or a more interesting character than Godzilla. But I also understand why Godzilla is a fan favorite character. So anyway, we're gonna cut to that now, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys all next time. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys all later. Bye.